Let's talk about this company and what you think is next for it. Can they turn it around? How do they get to profitability? How do they overcome some of the image problems? How do they reverse subscriber growth decline?
Yeah, good to see you, Tyler. Not many people in the office these days, so it is nice and quiet. Interesting with Spotify. I think this embodies exactly what's been going on really in the entire market, and that's this focus on profitability. We are in a macro environment where earnings growth is slowing down a little bit. The magnitude of beat rates is falling off a little bit. So anytime there's a crack in the profitability narrative, you're seeing companies get punished really harshly. And I think that's exactly what's going on with Spotify right now. Investors are looking for this profitability inflection. And now I think the question is that timeline being pushed out a little bit? The lack of guidance, I think, is problematic there for sure. And like I said, especially in this market, investors are going to be very unforgiving whenever profitability comes into question. They do have an investor day coming up in the not too distant future, so I would listen for commentary around margins and profitability there. That's something I'll be paying particularly close attention to. But listen, I do think that there is a silver lining around this cloud, and the one thing is the chart, first of all. So I don't know if you could pull up a 3-year chart, but like a lot of these stocks, Spotify has all of a sudden round-tripped back to the pre-COVID highs, almost to the penny, and it's showing a little bit of stability there today. So I think that's noteworthy. And then just from a valuation standpoint, it's never really been cheaper on a price-to-sales basis. So I think that's something investors can hang their hat on. And the last thing I'll say, just relative to the fundamentals of the company, in the earnings report, you saw a slight miss on monthly active users, but nothing material. And I don't really know that the long-term growth prospects of the company have changed that much. I think about what's happening with Netflix right now. Has the total addressable market changed? Is the growth story over? I think the answer is probably no. I think you had some pull forward in sales. Things will be a little bit lumpy, but I actually see an opportunity here if you can be a little bit patient.
Is the opportunity to buy today, or is it the opportunity to buy after that investor day when we might get a little more color and commentary and context?
Well, unfortunately, I think you can only be so precise about these things. And just from a technical perspective, you should be seeing support here at those old highs. So, yes, of course, the stock could go lower. But I think this is a reasonable entry point, knowing that investor day could potentially be a catalyst to the upside. I view that investor day as more asymmetric in that it could be a catalyst to the upside and not necessarily a catalyst to the downside, just because I think now investors are already baking in negativity around margins of profitability.
Right.
All right, so that's we called that the bad. Let's move on to the good. Jeff, stay right there and talk about the enterprise software cloud stocks. Microsoft, for one, saying that the cloud remains a major engine of its growth, sees a pickup this quarter. We saw strong results from ServiceNow, that stock doing really well. So where else, what does that tell you? And do you think this is a theme that can persist throughout a period of a lot of tumult and change?
I think it is, and it was really interesting after the Microsoft earnings report. You saw the way the stock traded. Right when earnings came out, it was down 5, 6, 7%. But as soon as guidance was given on the cloud and investors were reassured that they were going to return to increasing growth there, all of a sudden the stock took off again. So I think that is critical, and I think it can continue. But I've been saying this really since the end of last year. The type of tech stocks you want to own in 2022 are the growth at a reasonable price companies. It's not the low quality. It is the Microsoft. Strong EPS growth, profitability, returning dollars to shareholders, and I think the cloud has a good amount of runway here. This is a stock that just got ahead of itself. It was 30, 40% above its 200-day moving average. It was trading at 35 times forward earnings, but it's fundamentally very strong. I like what it's doing with Activision. I think that's really interesting, the bid that they're making there. And again, sort of held an important technical level at 295 and has moved higher, so I like that as well.